Hi, this is sort of an Audiobooks 101, audiobooks for authors who've not done audio before. We're going to talk about a lot of the basics, a lot of the audiobook industry, why you should do audiobooks, things like that. Before we get into it, we will introduce ourselves. I'll start at the end with Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Mcleo. I'm a fantasy author. I have produced 7 audiobooks and 2 more are coming, and I've hired out narrators for all of them, so they're not self-produced.
I'm Aven Shore. I've been narrating audiobooks for 8 years. I'm just about to round 250 audiobooks narrated. I live in Canada, in the Maritimes, yeah.
Coincidentally, I'm also Canadian.
Yeah, that is
connection.
Good. Yeah.
I've been full-time for 3 years now. My name is Senn Annis, and I've got about 70 books under my name. And I'm so happy to be here.
I'm JS Arquin. I am both an indie author and a narrator, a full-time narrator. I've done 120 or so titles under both my name and my romance pseudo, as Senn alluded to. Most of us work under at least 1 or 2 different names. Same reason you use pen names, just genre differences kind of thing. So, all right, so how many people, before we get into it, how many people have done audiobooks before, have had their work turned into audiobooks? Just a few. All right, so the rest of you are thinking about it, right? Audiobook curious, we will. All right, so why would someone want to do audiobooks? Would anyone like to take this question? What are some good reasons for someone to do audiobooks?
So, as an author, I consider it a whole nother stream of income. I have a reader base already, but I am continually growing it by having audiobooks to offer also.
Because there's increasingly people who don't read print or ebook anymore and wait for the audiobook to come out. So there are a lot of units unsold if you don't have an audiobook. I'm one of those people because I read so much now for a living that I never pick up a book anymore, but I listen to audiobooks all the time. So
Yeah, so often people are commuting, they can't read, but they can listen. So it's really worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. And the other big reason is money. The audiobook industry has experienced double-digit growth for 10 years running. It is the largest, fastest growing segment of the publishing industry. Last year, I think it was 21% growth year over year. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry and growing. So, as Aven said, if you don't have audiobooks, you're missing a lot of people and a lot of opportunities. So, how can you get audiobooks? There's a few different ways. We'll talk quickly about the ones that we're not going to go in depth about. You can we'll just gloss over. We want to mention them because they're legitimate ways to get your stuff into audio. You can sell your audio rights, right? To a big publisher, Podium, Tantor, Blackstone, all these people that are here. You can DIY it, which is narrating your own audiobook. Didn't you say you did that once, Ashley? Or am I'm misremembering? Ashley's never done that. I don't recommend it personally just because it's a huge learning curve. I personally, before I became a narrator, I started a podcast, and I did that for a couple of years, just to get comfortable recording and to learn all the nuts and bolts, because it's a lot. It really is. It's going to take 10 times longer than you think it's going to, and be 10 times the headache you think it's going to be doing it yourself. That said, you can do it. If you feel passionate about it and you want to do that, more power to you. But just know it's going to be an uphill climb, and you're going to have to put a lot of time and effort into it. So, the third way would be hiring a producer/narrator. And so why would we want to go this route?
So the way I usually present it to people is, what kind of author are you? Would you prefer to just keep writing? And are you thinking about audio because you know you need to do it, but you don't have time? So are you the type of person who just wants to get it done? Like to hand it over, to make it happen because you know your audio needs to be out there? Or is writing one element of a business that you're running that's yourself, and you like to have total control, you like to get feedback on your covers, and you're involved in every element of the production of your book. If you're that kind of person, then you are going to care about the voice that you choose. So there's a spectrum there, and you can place yourself on it. And at the very end of like just make it happen is sell your audio rights, and goodbye, and it will happen. And then in the middle is production houses where they handle the tech and the production. They can handle the casting. Some of them handle the marketing, and you can have as much involvement as you wish to have there. Or if you would like a really one-on-one, if you the way to make the most money, honestly, if it's a long-term thing, if you're writing series, if you're the one who is willing to learn about your distribution options and how to cast and the process, that is the most involvement, and that would be the direct relationship with the narrator. So you can place yourself on that spectrum.
Anyone like to add anything?
Yeah, I hire out people because I don't think it would be very enjoyable for my reader to hear me doing the audiobook. I can't do voices and I'm not trained in acting, so hiring a professional is really doing a service to your readership or your new readership if you're looking to grow your audience.
Right. And also you may be female and your protagonist may be
Yeah.
male, or your protagonist may be French, you know? We write about a lot of people who are not us, and our voices would not necessarily be the correct choice for that protagonist. And as Aven alluded to, I'll just touch briefly, doing it yourself is the highest profit margin, honestly, long term. You know, if you're selling your audiobook rights to one of the big companies, they're going to do a great job. You're going to get a big great audiobook out of it, but you're going to get a much smaller percentage of the royalties. So if you believe in yourself, if you believe that your books are going to sell, and you're going to keep putting out a good product, long-term business strategy, doing them yourself has the highest return on your investment.
But it is an investment.
It's
a big investment in time and learning the industry, which not everybody has, especially if you want to just keep writing. So that is the choice.
Absolutely.
And the middle ground there will save you the time, like doing a production company, having them handle things, and helping you know the information. It's a time saver, a significant time saver.
Significant
So
time
I think time, money-wise, it's worth considering that.
And again, small production companies also buy audio rights. You don't have to sell it to a publisher.
Right. All right, so that's going to dovetail nicely, since we're talking about money, into the different ways you can produce audiobooks. There's three basic paths. There's what's called PFH, there are royalty share deals, and there are also royalty share plus deals. Who would like to talk about what a basic PFH looks like?
So PFH is per finished hour of audio. That's how we, okay. So let me know if you can't hear, but PFH is how we quote our rate. It's per finished hour of audio. It's important to understand that on average, the official figure is 6.2 working hours create one finished hour of audio, because we're doing all the prep work with the manuscript, we're learning the accents, we're doing the research, we're recording and mastering, editing, proofing, the whole thing. It takes a significant amount of time for a professional to get that finished hour in.
In the dark, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, okay. And so, yeah, so you're being billed per finished hour of audiobook. And just ballpark industry standard as for how many hours your book is going to come out based on the length of your manuscript is 9,300 words roughly translates to 1 hour of audiobook. And that fluctuates a little bit depending on the pace of your story, the pace of your narrator, but that's a good rule of thumb if you're just kind of trying to get a ballpark number. All right, second option would be royalty shares. Who would like to cover that?
Royalty share is when the author and the narrator share the risk of producing the audiobook, and they each receive a percentage of the royalties back from them. So bearing in mind that the narrator is going to spend the time or money for the subcontractors, an engineer, a proofer, sometimes a prep. When the narrator is bearing the cost of 6+ hours of work for every finished hour of audio, that's a significant investment on our side. When you're looking for a narrator to go in on that risk with you, your sales need to be attractive in order to attract a professional to take that risk with you. But that is what we call RS, or royalty share, is a split percentage of the royalties. Whereas per finished hour, which she talked about, you own the audio and you can do whatever you want with it after that. You can distribute it where you want, and you get 100% of the royalties.
Yeah, that's a pay up front model, basically.
Yes.
You pay all the costs up front, and then you own all the audio and all the royalties forever after. The third option is kind of a hybrid method that's come out in the last few years called royalty share plus. And basically, this was developed because a lot of people are like, well, I don't have a lot of money to invest up front, for a PFH deal, but I don't necessarily want to, get stuck with a newer narrator on a royalty share. I still want, a more experienced person that would normally work only under PFH. So, royalty share plus is a hybrid wherein you, the author, the rights holder, would put some money up front. Usually you'd be covering the post-production costs. So the engineering, the proofing, the things that are not the narrator's work. And so that way the narrator will say, well, okay, if I don't have to pay those costs out of pocket, I'm only investing my time, I'm willing to invest my time for only royalties and no money up front, kind of thing, if we agree to get that post-production taken care of. So that's what a royalty share plus deal is. It's basically royalty share, but you're putting some money in the front in order to ideally be able to attract a more experienced or perhaps higher caliber of narrator who would not be interested in just a straight royalty share. Ashley, how have you worked?
So I've done royalty share plus and paid per finish hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've done mostly paid per finish hour, and that's how I prefer to work. But it is more expensive because you're paying up front for everything. So on one project, I did the opposite. And I found great narrators for both, actually.
One thing that'll make you more attractive for us to consider a royalty share plus is not only sales, but having a marketing plan and being committed to marketing your book. If we see that, that's going to, for me anyway, make me take it seriously as a consideration.
Absolutely. All right. So, where can we find a producer? ACX is the biggest exchange. It's run by Audible. It's the Audiobook Creators Exchange. It's the oldest. Basically, you take your ASIN from your ebook. You have to have your ebook published first. You take it to ACX. You claim it. You're claiming your rights, saying, "Hey, that's my book. I'm claiming the audiobook rights." Then you put it up for audition. You choose the terms of the audition. Whether you're putting it up for royalty share plus, whether you're putting it up for PFH. You can determine the PFH that you're putting it up for. You can say, hey, I'm willing to pay this much per hour. And then you stick it up for audition, and people audition for it, and you get to choose your producer based on what you get. Would anyone like to go into this a little more?
ACX is the Craigslist. of audio.
That's perfect.
You're going to get swamped with auditions of all types of quality. Generally, you'll have no way of knowing without doing research the caliber of the narrators that are submitting. And it's a lot of work to listen to those auditions, to do that research, but it's a way.
I've never heard it called a Craigslist of audio, but it's kind of true. And yeah, so I've done it a couple times, and each time I got over 50 auditions, and you will get everything. So you will get some people trying to sneak AI in there. And you'll get some people auditioning a totally different book that's not yours. And then, I don't know why. But then you'll get, you know, amazing narrators and people that are clearly newer, but they're doing their thing and doing their best. And for me, I generally know if the person jives with my book within like a couple of minutes, and then I can weed out, and I'll just like favorite the ones I like, and then I'll go back and listen to them over and over until I figure out who's best. And then you can find the authors that they work with and message them and say, hey, how is this person? You know, are they timely? Are they? I guess you can ask them whatever you want. Sorry.
Because
Yeah.
you want to consider the quality of their work, but also try to suss out if they're reliable.
Yeah.
Because that's
It's a big
really
thing.
important. I find Findaway Marketplace also, the way the profiles are, you might get a better sense of the producer. It's another one.
So Findaway Marketplace works like ACX. It's new. So Findaway Voices used to be more of a, how would we say it, curated, thank you, whoever said that. Curated experience. You would give them your project, and they would give you a small list of narrators to choose from. But they've recently opened Findaway Marketplace, which is more of a free-for-all like ACX is. So you can kind of go in and look for narrators and put projects up.
You can use keywords for searching and stuff.
Yeah.
You can do that with ACX.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, as they've said here, the most important thing is do your homework. You know, you can always look into the people before you hire them, and you absolutely should, as you would with anything else. You know, with an editor or a cover designer, you would always check their references. You'd always check their work. You know, so do it. How else can we find narrators? Independent production companies. Yes?
Yes. Independent production or boutique production houses is the middle ground that we've mentioned a couple times. They're often narrator run. They're people who know the business. They know about the distribution. They have a roster of narrators that are vetted professionals, so that makes your pool much smaller. They can offer you 3 to 5 people that they think are the best for your book based on what you've given them, and then you choose from a small selection. And what are some other advantages of production houses? For what you get, the modest cost, for what you get, the value is very high.
And I think they'll help you make decisions, like about distribution. They'll have reliable information.
Examples?
Sure, there are several of them here this week. We've got Curated Audio.
Pink Flamingo and Fireside Audio were here this week.
Clean Reads, Leonardo Audio.
Leonardo, yeah.
And not here, we've got One Night Stand Romance, Spectrum.
Spectrum's also here.
Blue Nose.
Blue
Audiobook
Nose.
and
Yeah,
Highway.
there's lots.
I can't write that.
That's okay.
Afterwards, I'd be happy to like give you a list.
Yeah.
So is there any way we can distribute that?
Yeah. Sure. I've got a blog post with a list, and typically we can tell you, there's like, oh, you're based on your genre. Oh, this is this is where
Right,
you should go. Like
because
2 or
different
3
small production houses kind of
Yeah.
tend to specialize in certain genres,
tend
so,
to.
yeah.
Mhm.
But if you want to give me a link to that blog post after this, I'll post
Sure.
it in the 20Books group. So.
Oh.
Okay. Fabulous.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see, other ways to find producers that we haven't covered.
TikTok.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, TikTok, yes. TikTok for everything, guys. If you listen to an audiobook of anyone, preferably in your genre, and you love their narrator, contact the author. Just say, hey, what was it like working with this person? It's kind of the reverse. You haven't listened to their audition for your book yet, but you can still talk to someone who's worked with them, get the DL, and then you can contact the narrator directly if you wish.
Yes.
Yes.
You can always track down the narrator directly. You can listen to audible samples of other
Yeah.
books in your genre. You can talk to your fans if you're not personally an audiobook listener. Your readers might be, and they have favorites, I promise.
Mhm.
And if your favorites aren't available because they're booked out for years or they're out of your price range, a production company is going to know the other narrators that work in that genre that might have a similar style or similar tone to suggest to you.
Mhm. And as they said, use your community. Like, that's number one for me. I mean, that's why we're all here, right? We're all here working together. Talk to the other authors in your community. Reach out to them. Check out their audiobooks. You know, say, oh, I really like that narrator. You know, contact them. Be like, hey, I was working with that narrator. It was great. All right, give me their contact info. I can't stress that enough. Word of mouth for me is like number one. Use your community every time, and you'll get good results as far as I'm concerned. Right, so we've covered all that. Now let's move on to the actual production. How would we do it? So first, as I said, if you want to set up an audition, we'll just use ACX as our example here because it's easiest. As I said, you're going to start with your ASIN, your ebook ASIN, to claim your audio rights. You're going to put up the audition. Once you put up the audition, what information do we need to know on that audition? What do you need to put up there? What are we looking for? Who would like to throw something out?
Okay, so what I do is I provide a manuscript sample. I don't remember what the word count is on ACX, but it's around maybe 7 pages. And I try to choose a sample. I'm a very dialogue-heavy author, and I use a lot of accents, like country accents. So I try to get one that has as many of those as possible in the sample, so I can hear the narrators do those accents. And then I actually do a list of like the other accents that aren't in there because there's always some. That's what I generally provide.
Sorry, could
And
you repeat that last sentence, Ashley? I missed it.
I also give them a list of like other accents that might be in the book because I have very large casts and I'm probably not going to have a dialogue segment with like 50 people. So I just want to make sure they know, hey, this is also in here. Can you do all of these?
Yeah, and that's essential information.
Essentially, because it can rule some of us out that don't have certain accents in our toolbox.
And if you're not able to fit everything into that initial audition, keep in mind there is a second round, your first 15. You can request other sections that you want to make sure you get right. But having all the information up front of things we need to know is accent-wise.
So what I suggest to people when they're choosing their sample is what's important to you in your book. Like she said, she knows that her books are dialogue heavy, and that's important, so she's providing dialogue. If your book is erotica, you want to know how the narrator is going to treat intimacy and sexuality, like how emotional do they get. So you provide that in your sample, and accents and tension, dramatic tension. If depends on your genre.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the length question goes, kind of industry standard for our end for providing auditions is a 3 to 5 minute sample. And so as far as what that looks like for word count from your end, that's about 500 words-ish.
Okay.
2 to 3 pages.
2 to 3 pages.
But
It's short.
you can-
It's shorter than you think.
Yes, but you can provide a longer sample for context. Just know that you're to expect under 5 minutes. I never do more than 3 on the 2 to 3 minute.
Exactly. Like we may look at your 7 pages and be like, I like this chunk here, and that's the chunk I'm going to do.
And as you said, you usually know within a minute or two.
Exactly.
If you like,
So we're not gonna read 7 minutes, but a callback is perfectly appropriate as well. If you've got a short list that you're deciding between, you can ask us for a longer piece or for a different piece to make your final decision.
All right. So once you've hold the questions. We're going to do a Q&A at the end. We'll have time for questions. So hold that thought. So once you have decided on your narrator, your terms of production, all that, you've got your contract, which is all automated through ACX, by the way. They have automated contract process. Procedure. It's very easy. I speak for a living, can't you tell? Then what happens?
Do we want to talk about distribution?
Oh God, do we want to talk about distribution? No, let's talk about production.
Okay. So then what happens? You communicate with your narrator if you're communicating directly with the narrator. If you're working with a production house, say Audiobook Empire, they're going to ask you for a character list if you have one. They're going to ask you for what you think is important. Do you have voices in your mind? Do you have actors do you cast these people? And that asks you to think about voice characteristics, not physical characteristics, but how might these people sound? And if you don't have strong opinions, that's fine too. But you will be offered the opportunity to make that input. And then the narrator records a sample for approval. And at that time is the time that's the time to bring up anything that you care about or aren't sure about or don't like, because after that we're on our own with it. We're going to go into there's going to be a long period of silence where we go into the booth and we finish the thing, and there isn't a directorial opportunity. In the book, you have to trust the professional to make creative choices. That part of the process of input and trust comes before in the samples and the auditions. And then we create the audiobook, and we're making creative decisions based on our knowledge of the audience as well, because after hundreds of audiobooks, we also know something about how our work is received. So we complete the audiobook, we surrender it to the engineer or to the production house. We get proofing back so that we correct all our mistakes to have a word perfect audiobook, and then it goes for sale. Did I miss anything?
No.
Another thing to finalize in that first 15 before we start recording is any pronunciation. So anything that might have been missed in the samples, if there's any names, like for me, I'll give you a recording of all the names I find in the book, because sometimes Alana is Elena, or
Yeah, that is a big miss on my part, because that is our first step, is to prep the audiobook and to find those words and to ask you about them. It's huge.
and some genres that's more like fantasy.
Yes.
Are more significant.
It's a long list.
So think about that as like, because we might miss a word. Like have that really in mind, because once we've recorded,
We're not going to go back and re-record
It will-
300 cases of Elena.
and that has happened to
we
me.
have, yeah.
I'm not good.
You have, huh?
Once or twice, but that was it.
Well, yeah, it's a very tough learning experience to
We'll have questions in
absorb.
just a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I provide an MP3 file and a list of
Yes.
characters.
Oh, we love you. That's wonderful.
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
thank you.
yes.
Thank
Haven't
you.
seen the outfit.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And as Aven said, again, this is a spectrum. If you don't care how things are pronounced, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, we're creative professionals, we're actors. We will take your fantasy word and do it however it seems right to us. We're fine doing that. You know, but if you care, let us know up front.
I think that you can like record it on your phone, whatever,
Yes.
whatever the names of the places are. And I think like you said, I will say, this character sounds like Emma Stone. Like, she has a very distinct voice. You know what that character sounds like in that way. So,
Scarlett
yeah.
Johansson.
Yeah. Great information for you guys to know.
Right. We're just about to the Q&A, but just briefly, I want to touch on the stages of the production, as Aven talked about. So there's the recording. Well, there's the pre-recording phase, as we just covered, which is the time to get feedback, get all pronunciations, accents, and stuff. Make sure you're on the same page with your narrator. Then there's the recording phase, where your narrator disappears and you don't hear from them, and they're alone in their little studio for weeks on end with your words. And then there's post-production, in which the audio goes off to an engineer. You know, this is a sound engineer. They do all the mastering, the editing. They make sure it all sounds good. Then a proofer listens to it all and reads along with your manuscript and makes sure it's all word perfect. And anything's a mistake, they mark it. And that all gets sent back to the narrator to re-record. And then that audio goes back to the engineer again, and they plug it all in and fix all the mistakes. And then it all gets mastered, and then it's ready for you. So it's a big process. There's a lot of people involved, and that is why PFH rates are what they are, because all of the people in the process are professionals, and everybody's getting paid for their work. So, all right, we're now at the end of the time. I mean, not the end. We've got like 10 minutes, but anyway, it's Q&A time, basically. So, all those questions that are burning holes in your tongues. Yes, you had your hand up a long time ago. We'll go with you first.
Just how, I don't read, correction, I don't listen to audible books because I'm one of those ones who has to focus on something, and if I'm driving, you don't want me to focus on that.
Fair enough.
So I'm clueless on how important things like accents are in audible books. How important is it? I mean, I have characters from New Zealand, one from Memphis, South LA.
Our rule of thumb is that if the accent is mentioned in the book, if you explicitly say that this character has an accent, we have to perform the accent.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the listener expectation now. And it may be slight, it may be a hint, but
It's going to be there.
No,
that
I'm
is
not
the
changing characters.
listener expectation, or the standard.
Yep. Next. Yes, you're front.
Does it get more expensive with more characters? You know, like how you said you might have 50. I would think that it's
No.
doesn't matter. You
No.
just have to figure out how to come up with that many voices, and you all
Yes.
do that.
That's our
without
job.
issue.
That's our job.
We know that going in. We're agreeing to that going in.
However, she mentioned having numerous accents. What that can do is limit the number of narrators capable of doing that. Like, I will rule myself out of a major character that has a New Zealand accent. Because I will say I'm not the best narrator for you, and here are some people who do have that in their toolbox.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have Kiwis in my.
Next, you sir in the back in the middle.
Hi. First off, amazing. This panel deserves a much bigger room.
Thank you.
Also, I'm here from ACX. Everything you're saying is amazing, minus the Craigslist. I don't hate it, it's just new. If anyone has any additional questions, again, the information here is amazing. I've been with ACX for about 10 years now. Their advice is stellar. If you have any other questions, we're over at KDP in the main event area. But again, thank you guys. You guys are killing it. The advice is amazing and on point. So
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I do use ACX.
Yes, ma'am in the back.
Anthony
So now,
Either one. Duke it out.
no shame to this man, but have you ever contracted? Because I've heard of some authors who contract directly with the narrator and then get the sound files to them and then can give it to the distributor without having to go through ACX. How common is that? And if that's the case, do you have an independent contract with that author so it's all on the up and up?
Is that?
Yes, that is common, that is totally fine. You can independent contract just to get the files directly to you, and then you can take them to whatever distributor you want. We work, that's fine.
That is per finished hour only would be your scenario there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it common, but it's definitely an option.
It's on
Okay,
the right.
what do you all want to see in like just a standardized contract going between you and the author at that point, or?
Yes.
Well, we have contracts for that scenario.
Yeah, most of us have kind of a
Yeah.
standard contract we use.
Okay,
so,
awesome, thank you.
yes. Other lady in the back.
The New Zealand one.
Yeah.
So ACX is not available in New Zealand,
That's
staring
right.
at the ACX rep. So the dragon will devour you later. No, so not in a bad way. So do you, I mean, are you happy to work with Find Away Voices, or are there other options? Someone's told me that recently there are newer options for New Zealand and Australians. I'm not sure what they are. It's one of the reasons I'm here today. So is Find Away the only option, or are there others?
There are others, but I can't tell you what they are off the top of my head. Does anyone?
Spoken Realms,
Okay, so
but I do believe that the narrator is the contact point
Right.
with them specifically, Spoken Realms, not the author,
Okay.
but that's an option.
So basically, you'd find a narrator in contact with them directly.
And they would.
Yeah.
You would handle that
So
relationship.
they do the distribution. That's all. isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Distribution is a huge other topic that we're not touching, that you need to learn about. So we'd be happy to answer questions after about it, but it is significant.
Sir?
What percentage of your sales would you consider to be reasonable for audiobooks? So if I have a book that sold X, what percentage might I expect from audible sales from that?
It varies by genre, absolutely.
Let's
Because
look at fantasy or urban fantasy.
Ashley, why don't you field that question?
I do not know the answer.
So typically your audiobook unit sales correlate loosely with your ebook sales. So you can, if your ebooks are on sale, you can predict how, and based on receiving, if you're 100% royalties, $3 to $8 per unit. It's priced by the length of your book. So you can math out, based on your ebook sales, a projection of how long it would take to earn back your investment.
So you-
However,
Are you saying
Are
one
you
to
saying
one?
that it's 1-to-1 then?
No, it is not one-to-one.
No.
Okay.
Ebook sales are going to be significantly higher
That's
than
what I
audiobook
asked.
sales. Yes.
That's what I
Yeah.
assumed.
Yes.
I was looking for a rough estimate.
Right.
Because that's one of the big decisions is,
Right.
should I afford to do Audible given my sales are whatever my sales are
Absolutely.
to be?
Absolutely.
From all the podcasts I've listened to, it's a more long-term earning back strategy and growing your market than you're going to earn this all back in 2 months.
I will say as well, hi, another narrator, there's a lot of people that reach out to me initially and say like, oh hey, like I want to produce an audiobook because I'm missing out on sales because I need to have every avenue open to me. Audiobooks are not going to make your print book sell faster. If you're not selling your print book, audiobooks are not the marketing bump that you need to
Yes.
make your print book
Yeah,
sell.
that's important. If your book is selling, your audiobook will be
Will also
selling.
sell.
If your book is not selling, your audiobook's not going to sell either.
I just want to add something.
Yeah.
I think you said $3 to $7 per unit sold. If you go wide with your audio, and you can do that through Find Away, I think, you'll make significantly more because you can sell to libraries, and libraries love to buy audio, and you can price that higher.
And
then
then
to-
also you can control your pricing
Pricing.
with wide,
Yeah.
and you cannot with exclusive.
And the chirp royalty rate is just beautiful.
Yes, Becca.
I know that it will vary, but can you give a range of like per finished hour rates? Like what's
Absolutely.
reasonable or
Yeah.
on experience?
Pro rates generally run between $250 and $350 per finished hour.
Okay.
So the union standard for raw files is 250, but for finished, it's a minimum of 350 for finished files. So that's your union rate.
Can you tell me with series, like, how big of a deal is it to get somebody that's going to be able to do your whole series? And, like, if you're starting out and you have a low budget, you know, and it does well, but then you could afford more, like, how terrible is it to switch in the middle? Like, you want to stick with the same person the whole time?
I mean,
I want to stick with the same person.
I feel like that.
And when I hire narrators, I say, hey, this is going to be 9 books. Are you like serious about this venture into narration? That's exactly what I did with the series that I'm working with now. And she said, yeah. And so I'm hoping she doesn't like bounce.
If they drop off the map, what do you do?
Then you have to find someone else.
Do you re-record the first one too?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Seen that happen.
I would rarely commit to a royalty share where it's a series.
Yes.
So if you want the same narrator for finished hour.
Okay.
But we love series. I'm narrating books now that weren't written when I narrated my first books for her. You know,
Yeah.
few authors. You have a relationship that goes on for years.
We want that.
Yeah, we love
it's
that.
repeat business for us. That's
Yeah.
financial security.
Right.
So
And we get better at your books because we
know your style.
understand your-
Yeah. In the back.
Hey, so I'm also a narrator. I got to meet some of you yesterday. Hi. And got most of my work bootstrapping through ACX and have gotten up to about 90 titles now. But I was really struck when you said that after your 15 sample, there is nothing. And I'm almost asking because I've had the really great opportunity to work with several authors and work on series, and I really thrive on the collaboration. I often do send things to check in with my author, and I guess I'm asking, am I a chump?
That is unusual.
You are an exception. It's not a bad exception, but you are an exception, and perhaps like the industry will trend toward that, and we're sustaining an older habit. But yeah, that is not standard. That is not, we don't. It's not. It's not an expectation that all authors should have to have an ongoing collaborative experience.
But that could be due to personality. You might.
It's been a mixed bag. I mean, there's absolutely been a difference between people who are very hands-off, and of course, as I work with series, you know, there are authors who've gone, you've done these first 4 books, this next one's a cakewalk. And then there are those who've gone, this is my first audiobook, please hold my hand, I don't know what I'm doing. Sure. And I'm sure y'all have run the gamut between very laissez-faire authors and a little, shall we say, micromanagerial.
that's why you want the cutoff to be after the first 15.
Boundaries are super important.
Yes, boundaries are good.
So very, very important. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw another hand there.
I was just curious what you might need the manuscripts, if there's anything in the prep work ahead of time to have the manuscript ready for you to narrate it, or you just, the same one you did with your ebook, you give to you?
Yes.
If you have a character list, or if you have a summary already written, those things are really helpful.
But I rarely get that myself.
Yeah.
It's
nice
Yes.
to just work with the manuscript.
Usually
nice
we
to
just get the
have.
book as it was published. and we read it.
Sometimes though, the difference, like with nonfiction, there are some changes that are helpful if you write nonfiction.
For sure.
Whereas you could say the reader, you would say the listener, those types of things could be helpful if you did that for us, if you want that, but that's mostly nonfiction.
Okay, we are out of time. I'd just like to say 2 things. One, feel free to come up with any further questions or catch us afterwards. You know, we've got a half hour before the next panels. We're happy to talk to you. The second thing, we all decided to do kind of an informal reader's lounge in this room tomorrow during lunch break. So 11:15 to 12:15. If you have any pages of your book you would like to hear read out loud, we will be here. We'd be happy to do that for you.
And narrators.
Spread the word.
Yeah. Okay, wait. Narrators.
But before everybody gets up, we'd like to have, there's numerous narrators in the audience right
Oh, yeah.
now. If you would all stand up for the, so that
Oh, yeah.
authors can look we're all answering the same questions. So by all, we've got producers here, producers wave. Annie Ellicott's here from Sound Theater. Yes. Okay, so all of us are available for questions. Senn and I both have handy guides to
Yeah, we've got cards up here on the table. Please take them.
And
And thank you for coming.
happily go.